Welcome into the Women's Basketball Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things WNBA, college hoops, much, much more. We're matching today. It is the halfway point, folks, of the WNBA season. SB Nation's Mitchell Northam. I am Mia O'Brien. I'm all aboard the Charlotte Hornets train, by the way, Mitch, so I'm glad you're wearing the teal. I'm rocking the Players' Championship teal. Football season is almost here for the teal and black in the city of Jacksonville, Florida, and we have the WNBA AllStar game later this week and much to discuss. But first things first, those Charlotte Hornets, man, the Concanipple Fighting Hornets, or is Liam McNeely actually the main character? You tell me. I'm all in. I'm here for the college basketball presence in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I'm in on Concanipple as like a long-time NBA player. I feel like if you do one thing really, really well, like you have a long career in the NBA, and like he's a really, really good three-point shooter, so he's going to be around a while. Shout out to the Hornets. Maybe they'll be better next year. We'll see.
I like Sion James as well. Really loved him in the portal for Duke. I think he's
fun guy to cover at Duke. I got to cover a couple of Duke men's games last year. He's a good guy to talk to. Sion James. I'm on that train as well.
Is this a good W comp? Is he the Kate Martin of the Charlotte Hornets? Is that a good comp? Because that's who I have labeled him.
That's a possibility. That's pretty good. Yeah, okay. That's a good pool. Yeah.
I'm glad that could top last week's Steelers analogy when it comes to the Las Vegas Aces, or as Kevin, my fiance, has dubbed them, the Las Vegas Asses. Just kidding, Becky Hammond. Don't worry. We'll get to you guys here in just a bit, as we do each and every week on the Women's Basketball Podcast. Though we have to begin with our Her of the Week. And I believe, Mitch, this is our first two-time winner in the W season for 2025. Yes, folks. We're giving her flowers just like she asked for. She's a reoccurring character on this show. She is the Chicago Sky's Angel Reese. 8 straight double-doubles. That ties an 8 straight double-double mark from a season ago. The Chicago Sky with an impressive win over the Minnesota Lynx that may have screwed up Mitch's picks. We'll get to that here in just a second as well. I know I still have questions about the Sky, Mitch, but I think Angel Reese, a very deserving Her of the Week.
Yeah, as we've said on this podcast before, in terms of the Angel Reese Caitlin Clark rivalry, two very different players, but the skills that they specialize in. Caitlin, logo threes, neck breaking assists, she does really, really well. Angel, she gets boards. She is the board woman of the WNBA.
The chairwoman of the boards, some might even say.
Leads the league in rebounds. Even if you take away her offensive rebounds per game, she's still fourth in total rebounds, with just her defensive rebounds per game. Then you toss in the 4 boards per game. She's the only player this season averaging double digits in rebounds. I think that the point forward experiment for her in Chicago is going really, really well. I think long term, it would be nice if she could play with an actual adequate point guard. I think we'll maybe get to that a little bit later, as we talk about some trade deadline stuff and some different things like that. Last week at SB Nation, I actually did a thing where I kind of picked, not really a mock draft, but I was like, all right, like dream scenario, if we could just like put these players on these teams, the best landing spots for some of our 2026 WNBA draft prospects. And I picked Olivia Miles for the Chicago Sky. Just because like I think they could really use a player like her, who is not only someone who excels at creating shots for other people, but as we've noted, like improved dramatically as a three-point shooter last season, and could just help them out a lot along the wings and do some really good things for them. And I think her and Angel Reese would create, we'll also get into this later, maybe the best trash talking duo in the WNBA. If Olivia Miles can end up on the Chicago Sky, I think that would be a whole lot of fun next season.
What does that say about Haley Van Lith? We'll also get to that. Real quick, though, a stat from ESPN Stats and Info, our friend Rebecca Lobo. Angel Reese, the only player in WNBA history to average 17 rebounds per game over a 6-game span. She has now done that 4 times. This is the 29th year of the league, which celebrates the anniversary of its first ever All-Star game as we're recording this podcast today on this fine Monday. And of course, Angel Reese has yet to complete 2 full seasons in the W. Let's hit this week's starting 5, our 5 biggest storylines in the wide world of women's basketball. Mitch, I'll get us started. Yeah, I know. I have to be the one who has to stir the pot and once again begin the starting 5 with Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde of the 2025 WNBA season. This week, they're playing well again. This is a team that scored the most points and a half in the W this season. They went off for 64 in the first half of Sunday's victory over the Dallas Wings. They had scored 123 points between the second half of their game against the Dream and the first half of that game against the Aces. Also, obviously, the most of any WNBA team this season. And they looked not only like they were having a ton of fun, getting up and down the floor in transition, playing great defense, but Caitlin Clark finally looked like Caitlin Clark. She looked healthy. She looked happy. And it was a much improved offensive output compared to just days earlier when they shot just 30% from the floor against the expansion Golden State Valkyries. Again, we're recording this podcast on Monday, July 14th, Mitch, which means that this episode could drop. And listen, the sun could very well knock off the Indiana Fever. If we have learned anything this season, not only is the W wide open, but the Indiana Fever are as unpredictable as the Florida weather in the summer. What say you? How are we feeling about the return of Caitlin Clark? And we're keeping it week by week. This week we're in on the Fever. Next week we could be back out.
Yeah, I think those last 2 games, the wins over Dallas and Atlanta, played pretty well. That loss to the Valkyries was just really puzzling. They shot horrendously from 3-point land. Turned
maybe
the
because
ball
it was a
over too
noon
much.
start. Was it like the midday kids camp day? I'll throw that out there for food for thought. I don't know.
Perhaps, but didn't seem to bother Veronica Burton, who shot 5 of 6 from 3 with the millions of screaming kids, not millions, but thousands of screaming kids in her ears. By the way, I've seen, just a quick aside real quick, I've seen some people ask the question about oh, should we get rid of these camp days? Camp days? Has the WNBA outgrown camp days? No, we shouldn't get rid of camp days. You know why camp days are important? I think I heard Courtney Banghart say this one time, because they do this in women's college basketball too. Once during the non-conference slate, you'll play a game, on a Wednesday at 11 in, November. And it what it does is it creates core memories for these kids and introduces them to the game. And they go to the game and they scream their heads off, and maybe they don't actually know what's going on, but they're there with their friends and they have a good time. I also, there's some kid from Chapel Hill who last year at UNC's camp day game asked me to borrow a pen for autographs, and I never got that pen back. So I'm hunting you down, Chapel Hill.
If you're
kid.
Listening, bro.
I'm just kidding.
Out.
It's fine.
Also of note, Major League Baseball has day games on a random Wednesday, random Thursday in the summer. And I remember just a couple of years ago taking my then 9th grade cousin to a Chicago Cubs Wednesday afternoon game with his friends. It's normal.
Yeah, these are good, core memories. You're introducing new fans, you're growing new fans. Not all of those kids are going to become WNBA fans, but a fraction of them will. And they'll continue to follow the league. And, the kid in Chapel Hill who stole my pen, just kidding. I gave it to them. They get autographs and all that stuff, and they get to hang on to that stuff for forever. I have somewhere in storage, a Maryland Terrapins hat that's covered in autographs from some game that I went to when I was a kid, stuff like that. It creates new fans. And so to do this once or twice a season, per team, is not a big deal. And I think people should stop complaining about it. I think the most people who actually complain about it are our fellow people in the media who just hate hearing the screaming kids. And look,
and also having to wake up earlier than they normally would.
Yeah, I get it. It's an early start. You're not ready to hear all those screaming kids. It can be a bit much sometimes, but you got to take the earplugs and you just got to take one for the team here.
You absolutely do. And as far as the Indiana Fever go, Mitch, we're in this week. Before we keep it moving in this week's starting five, we out. Do you expect us to be out next week like we have been? It's pretty much been a snip, snap situation, in the words of Michael Scott.
As we will get to making money with Mitch, I think that the Fever are on the right track, but I think they're about to take an L.
Oh, a nice little tease there.
Maybe not tonight, on this Monday, or on Tuesday.
They play Tuesday. Yep.
But perhaps later in the week.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. Write that one down, folks. That's what we in the biz call a tease. Mitch, you're up with number 2. And oh, baby, are we going to make a foray into the world of college hoops, both the men's and the women's side? Man, oh, man. This could have been this week's main event, quite frankly.
Yeah. So there is going to be a change coming to the women's NCAA tournament. And that change is really just going to impact Selection Sunday. So basically what's going to happen is I guess this year and maybe perhaps going forward, they are going to announce the top 16 teams, the teams that host during that first weekend of March Madness, that host games in the first and second round. They're going to unveil those teams the day before on Saturday. Now, they're not going to reveal the seed list, but they're going to basically announce them in alphabetical order, and we're going to know what teams are hosting on the day before Selection Sunday. And then Selection Sunday is going to come, and we're going to get the full bracket and the full seed list and everything. The NCAA Women's Basketball Committee said that they did this to basically give these campuses like an extra day to sort of prepare for hosting, which I think, which I get and I understand, and I think is probably a good move considering some of the hotel and other sort of issues we've perhaps had in the past couple of years in terms of like hosting sites. So I think this is a good thing mostly, even though I think it's going to be weird. I will also mention that like this is the protocol for the baseball tournament. They do the same thing there where they announce, hey, here's everybody who's hosting the day before, and then the next day you get the full seed list and the full bracket. So, on that Saturday, we're still not going to know like who the number 1 overall seed is or who even the top 4 are. We're just going to know, hey, these are the teams that are hosting, and then the next day we're still going to get the full unveiled bracket.
Which you can make the argument of those 16 teams that host. I would argue each year, about 12 to 14 of them, you pretty much know who is going to host. So it's really just those 2 final 3, maybe 3 spots. That's up for debate.
Certainly the top 10, and then like depending on year to year, like how the resumes look and stuff and who's close and who's not close. Yeah, I think, you're probably talking about like 4 spots that are really like up in the air and you're not sure like if you're going to host like, those number 4 seeds or whatever. And, so this happened last week at these NCAA meetings that the women's basketball selection committee had and the men's committee had. I think the women's meeting was in Philly and the men's was in Savannah, Georgia.
Which I don't know why it was in Savannah. I didn't know. I would have driven 2 hours up to go like chat it up with Charlie Baker and company, because I was fascinated to know that filibuster to ensure and it wasn't a filibuster, but I'm going to call it a filibuster, to ensure we stay at 68 teams in the NCAA tournament was occurring 2 hours north of me.
Yeah. I mean, for right now, we're not expanding the tournament. Neither one of those committees came to a decision. I'm really not sure like what's going to happen on that front. I had I don't know, how would I describe this person without giving it away? A very good source in the know, who would be close to these sort of like decision makings on the women's basketball side. Okay. Telling me that tournament expansion is imminent, like it's going to happen. Now, I don't know if that means that's going to happen this year. It doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. I feel like if it was...
If you would ask people a week ago, though, they thought it was happening this year.
Right. So maybe that means it's imminent for like the near future. So maybe we're talking about the 2027 or 2028 tournament. But this person says that this is happening. Now, the question then becomes, okay, so are we going to 72 or are we going to – is the other number 76?
Yes, 76
Okay.
will be the next
So
number.
we're
If
either
you ask
adding
Coach
four
K, he would
teams
like for
or
yeah, if you ask Coach K, he would like for it to be 322. But Mr. K, you are not going to win this one. As much as, yes, the powers that be at the NCAA want even more money because now they have to be paying member institutions restitution. But at the same time, I don't believe we're going to get to a world in which everyone makes the NCAA tournament.
yeah, and I think what's also interesting, just like in particular on the women's side, is we got that story from Front Office Sports last week that says that if they expand the women's tournament, it doesn't mean more money
No.
in terms of TV right revenue from ESPN. And I think that if we do expand the tournament, like you're going to have some pretty influential coaches. Dawn Staley is already one of them who's calling for basically ESPN to come back to the table. I think ESPN, with all due respect, is going to tell her to kick rocks. I just ESPN doesn't have any reason to come back to the table. As we talked about this over text, but as Howard Megdal laid out in his book, and I've written about this before and stuff too. The ESPN got a great deal in terms of the women's college basketball television package. I mean, they got an absolute steal. Like, and the NCAA, it is my opinion that they gave them a deal because ESPN is their longest standing and, longest partner in this thing. I just, to not put the NCAA women's basketball tournament out to a bid for like other media partners and like not give it to the highest bidder, I think was just an insane decision, and just diminish the value of your tournament. And so now you're in this situation where like the tournament might even grow and you're not even gonna like profit off of it. And so I just think it's a really bad place that the NCAA, Charlie Baker in particular, has put women's college basketball.
Well, especially when you juxtapose that with the impending and looming CBA negotiations for the
Mm-hmm.
WNBA, coupled with media rights questions, coupled with what was the beef last week on this podcast, the Nafisa Collier unrivaled conspiracy theory. But to her credit, the fact that Unrivaled, which of course she, Brianna Stewart, the co-founders of, went out to market, found a television rights deal with TNT, with Turner, and now are reaping the rewards of it. I go back to 2019 to give you guys, I think this might be the first ever in the history of the women's basketball podcast, an AEW reference. I remember when Jaguars co-owner Tony Khan announced his plans to start the wrestling company. And I remember one of the first things I talked to him off to the side about was, did you get a TV rights deal? And he said, yep. We can't announce it yet, but we have a legit one. And I remember kind of being skeptical, thinking like, okay, is it, for lack of a better term, baller TV, wave TV, like, is it some like indie stream it, Flow Sports? And then I was told a couple days later, no, it's Turner. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And that is the driver because, as I have said time and time again, the most recession proof commodity in television, in sports, is live game broadcasts. And so the fact that women's basketball at the collegiate level cannot truly maximize profits off of their play, it's a sin. It's an absolute sin.
And like you mentioned Turner, so Turner's going into this chapter of like their media future or whatever without the NBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
I bet Turner would have bid on the women's college basketball tournament, and maybe they wouldn't have because they have the men's tournament, but like,
well, also you can't forget to, right, they have the men's tournament coupled with, that's their biggest entity
right,
that they have a deal with, and the NCAA pearl clutches that deal with Turner. I don't believe they will ever take that to market. I could be wrong because I never thought the NBA would ever leave Turner, but
like, I think about like how much we thought of and how good like the broadcasts were when like Fox had all those Iowa games, showcasing Caitlin Clark. I thought
CBS,
Peacock,
NBC.
I thought Peacock did a really good job. With women's college basketball, they've had some Big Ten games. Like I think there are other parties interested now, and I think like the Kaplan report, like the NCAA like to kind of poo-poo on that, but like that report came out before the 2023 Final Four when we had the big boom from the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese matchup. So like that report said what it said, which is like this thing can be its own thing. And then you have the boom And then you see even the ratings last year with no Caitlin Clark, with no Angel Reese, and they're still the best that they have ever been outside of the 2023-24 tournament. So like I just like as we get into this NCAA, will they or won't they expand? I just think like it puts women's college basketball like as a whole at a disadvantage because you're not able to capitalize off of the increased attendance and increased viewership and all that, increased eyeballs, and you're not going to get more money from ESPN. And that deal runs for a long time. I think there's 9 years left on it, 8 years left on it, something like that. So it was a long deal when it was announced. So yeah, it's not a great spot for the sport to be in, I don't think.
Like we said, this could have been this week's main event. So much to dive into when it comes to tournament expansion, what it means for media rights. I am sure we will hit on it again in the coming weeks, especially when you couple it with, as I alluded to, the ongoing CBA negotiations in the W and what media rights could look like professionally in women's basketball, in addition to at the collegiate level. But instead, it's number 2 in this week's starting 5. Let's get it back to the W with number 3. Ah, yes, it is time to talk about the Las Vegas Aces. Aces. Love you guys. Love you, Becky. Kevin was very proud of that joke, so I had to make sure that I got it off. Yes, that's Kevin, my fiance, not Kevin Schwartz, friend of the podcast, sometimes co-host. Look, we dove into it last week. It's kind of like the Fever with the Jekyll and Hyde conversation. I made the Steelers analogy. It made Mitch sad. The idea of, are we seeing an Aces team that is clinging to superstars who are either in the final years of their prime or maybe the final years of their prime have snuck up further than we expected, coupled with an A'ja Wilson injury, which she did not look like it affected her. So she's not included in this conversation, by the way. She's the TJ Watt. She's out here over on this little island. The rest of them, Jewel Lloyd, for, I don't even know what it ended up being. Let me pull up the actual box score. From the Valkyries game, it was a little bit better, but of course she had 5 combined points in the 2 games prior to that. Jewel Lloyd finished with, what do we got here? So she finished with 15 points. She was 4 of 11 from the floor. Didn't start off well. Our friend, the point guard, Chelsea Gray, with 6 total points. 2 of 7 from the floor. 1 of 3 from 3-point range. Jackie Young saved them in this 104-102 win over the expansion Golden State Valkyries, who Mitch and I continue to be high on. Natalie Nakase is going to win Coach of the Year despite our friend Carl Semesco's best efforts. There's no question about that. But ultimately, Mitch, I do come back to, I think they sneak into the postseason as an 8 seed. I don't know if Becky Hammon will be punting any more puppies in the weeks to come, just because I do think with A'ja Wilson playing like one of, if not the best player in the world again, I think that is able to mask a lot of the shortcomings of a roster that leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, let me talk about the Valkyries first, and then we can just kind of roll this into sort of our next topic. I think the Valkyries are a playoff team. I think that they are going to make the playoffs. If you look at the standings right now, they are right there as the 8th team in the standings, just behind the Mystics and just behind the Fever, who each are only a half game ahead of them. I think the Valkyries, like, that's a team that's having a lot of fun, and the Mystics look that way too. I think if they can kind of keep this thing rolling in the second half of the season, like I think they sneak into the playoffs, and that's a big win, because in the preseason, like I was very, very low on this team. I did not think that this was a roster capable of being this good, and I've been proven wrong. So yeah, shout out to Natalie Nakase and everybody on that team. Kind of rolling into our third topic here, or fourth topic rather, staying with the Aces, I went to Fairfax last week to see the Aces play the Washington Mystics, sold out crowd. It was Wicked night, so we got a cool halftime performance.
We will be talking about Wicked later in the program, folks, because I saw Wicked perform at the halftime of the Fever Sparks game, and it changed my life. Continue,
okay.
Mitch.
Stephanie Dolson seemed to really like the performance. She was kind of hanging out with the performers after halftime. My just kind of like from seeing the Aces in person sort of thing, and A'ja Wilson did not play in this game. I think a couple of things. I think number one, this is a team now where they will go as far as Asia Wilson on her own can take them. And while Asia Wilson is a great player and having a great season, I'm not entirely sure that like that is enough to go super far in this league nowadays. Like you need more than one player, and when Asia plays really well, like they're gonna win. And when she gets double and triple team and needs somebody else to step up, I think they're in trouble. This was a team like as I watched them play against the Mystics without her, they just looked very disjointed and very not comfortable like playing with each other, especially the three guards in the backcourt. I think it might be maybe time for the Aces and Chelsea Gray to break up.
You could include that in today's main event. Don't forget to put a little like pin in that one, and we could circle back to that.
Yeah, we'll maybe dive into that a little bit later. But like, I just I don't really think that like she works on this team, and like there's a lot of like over dribbling and like just not really sharing as much as maybe she should with Jewel Lloyd, who is a player who's used to having the ball in her hands a whole lot. I just whatever like magic chemistry that Chelsea Gray had with Kelsey Plum, it's not really there with Jewel Lloyd, and it's also not really there anymore with Jackie Young. And like, so you have these three really who individually are really good guards, but I think together this season, like, it just hasn't worked. And then in the front court, like there's no one really there consistently helping Asia Wilson, or who can consistently supplement her or consistently even back her up. Like I think Aaliyah Nye is a really good and solid player. I thought that Megan Gustafson gave the Aces some really good minutes when she came into the game.
As predicted on this podcast, by the way, that Megan would have to play the 5, though, for all the reasons you just outlined.
Yeah. Came into the game, I think pretty much scored right away. She was giving Shakira Austin some problems. Like I just feel like, there's a couple of teams in the league where like, I think you just kind of have to scrap whatever plans you had in May and like lean into whatever's working now or just figure something else completely out. And I think the Aces are one of those teams. I just don't think it's working this year, and I don't know if they're going to hit the reset button now or if they're going to wait until we get to the off season where we're going to have this reworked CBA. There's a lot of players who are free agents this summer or this winter as we get into the off season. So like, do you wait to really make like some dramatic moves and like just ride this out? I don't know. My other thing from Fairfax was just like the Mystics.
Amazing. So much fun.
They're just really fun to watch. And like, it's fun watching, like they're a team that knows exactly what they are. And they are leaning all the way into like, we have these two really good young players and Sonia Citron and Kiki Irifin, and Shakira Austin is healthy and she's playing really well, had the game-winning basket against the Aces with a little offensive rebound and a putback. Brittany Sykes is playing well. Like they're a team that like
Aaliyah Edwards is coming off the bench, which is all you need to know about what the state of the roster is. She was the 6th overall pick a year ago.
I mean, they have really good depth in the front court. Like when you can start Shakira Austin and Kiki, and then your first two players off the bench to give them a break are Stephanie Dolson and Aaliyah Edwards. That's pretty good. Like, we talked about like, there was the whole Aaliyah Edwards trade rumor thing. Will she or won't she? I think it's okay if they hang on to her. Like if she is okay with that role.
Did it look like she was having fun? Because on the TV broadcast, it did.
Yeah. She seems to be having a good time. Yeah.
She wants to win. I like that. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. And like, I think Sydney Johnson like seems to kind of fit like the team's vibe and stuff. Like it just seems like a team that knows exactly what it is and is having a whole lot of fun. To go back to that thing I wrote for SB Nation real quick about like dream scenarios player from 2026 that you would like to see on this team. Wouldn't it be awesome if AZ Fudd ended up on the Mystics and a homecoming to the DMV?
Hometown gal, Nova.
Because that I think is the thing that is missing for the Mystics is like they really need some better 3-point shooters. And who better than AZ Flood? Also, you would get a healthy Georgia Amore next year, and she's a pretty good 3-point shooter. So I'm very high on the Mystics. Last thing I'll just say from Fairfax, very very entertaining post game press conference from Becky Hammon.
Punting puppies. I told you guys it would come back. Here we are.
So it was really interesting because like there wasn't a whole lot of people like asking questions in the press conference, but I was in there because I was like, Becky has a propensity to say some interesting things sometimes, especially after a loss. And the players had come in before, and Chelsea Gray had talked about like, how disappointed she was in the defense. So I asked Becky, about, hey, so like, what is it like, what's wrong with your defense and, whatever. And she said something real quick about the defense, but then just goes into like this long riff about how terrible the refs are. So she said, I didn't have enough challenges tonight. I thought the officiating was awful. Jackie Young got fouled at 33 seconds left on that layup. No call. I would have challenged 7 more calls and won them. I had no idea what that was. Awful.
Did she lose 2 challenges?
No, she actually won both of them.
Oh, she did one. Okay. Sorry, maybe I'm thinking of a different game then.
Against the Mystics, she did win both of them. So like
Valkyries, she did not.
I kind of see your point there a little bit, but then the best part was the press conference ends, she gets up from the table, and like as she's walking by us, she says, "Tell me how much my fine is." Like, so like she knows.
Like I said, she's moved on from when she was in Indianapolis a few weeks ago when I witnessed she didn't literally punt a puppy, people. That's just how I described it, encapsulated the look in her eyes as she went to each player on the bench and death stared them. No, the vibes are not good in Las Vegas. And look, like, here's the thing. First off, I do want to put a quick little note. Jewel Lloyd, it was 5 total points in the loss against Indiana and then the win over the Sun together. Maybe it was the win over the Mercury, those 2 games together, because she did have 20 points against the Washington Mystics at that game in Fairfax. Shout out George Mason. I just, for me, Mitch, I look at it and I say, okay, you sneak out a victory at home against the Valkyries, and that's a 1-possession game. You lose to the Mystics basically at the buzzer, and that's a 1-possession game. And so you can make the argument, any given Sunday, all the games are 1-possession games. But at some point in time, and I think this is true for any sport, when we want to talk about, wow, look at this team, they lost this many 1-possession games, or they won this many 1-possession games, what does that say about their trajectory? I don't think it says a whole lot of anything because you didn't close out the game. And that's been the biggest question mark for the Aces, even in their victories, including the one over Golden State. There was a moment where I know I looked at around at the couch at Kevin and was texting our friend Rebecca Kopelman, and I was like, I think they're about to blow another one.
Yeah. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the Aces. I think this roster is not what it used to be. I think that, as we talked about before, I just think like the moves that they made this last offseason, some were choices, some were not. But like you don't have Kate Martin, you don't have Kelsey Plum, you don't have Elizabeth Kitley anymore, who I think is another player that like still could have helped you. And I just don't think it's working anymore. And I think that I just don't think Chelsea Gray is really a fit for this team right now. I don't think the Jewel Lloyd experiment is really working. And I think you need to do a better job of putting Asia Wilson and Jackie Young in positions to succeed. I think those are your 2 kind of going forward, like the stars that you need to cater to. Last thing I'll say about Becky Hammon is just like, as somebody who was like taking some photos during that game, like just really fun person to just like follow on the sidelines, just like every single play she has a reaction to every play. She's never just like sitting in her chair quietly and like observing the play game. Like she has a reaction to everything that happens on the court.
It is All-Star week, though. We've got a couple of All-Stars on that Las Vegas Aces roster that will be making their way to Indianapolis. So let's round out this week's starting 5 with our picks. Team Collier, Team Clark. I do want to note, again, we are recording this podcast on Monday, July 14th. The news just broke that Ryan Howard will miss the rest of the month of July after such a curious situation where she suffers a hyperextension of her left knee against the Indiana Fever. She's carried off the court. And then at halftime, she puts a brace on. She warms up during halftime while her team's in the locker room. And then she plays the entire second half and quite frankly looks kind of awesome. So she's out the rest of July. So she will not be a member of the All-Star team of the All-Star game on Team Collier. Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, is expected to pick another player who will take Ryan Howard's spot. So we don't know who that final member of Team Collier is, but as those two units are currently constructed, Mitch, and look, I know it's all fun and games. It was certainly fun and games watching Nafisa and Caitlin draft their teams in a pre-taped televised event on ESPN. I'm curious, did you like the vibes? Did you like the I'm going to pick my friends who I previously played with approach? What say you about these two combinations? It was interesting in real time to hear Nafisa and Caitlin talk about, okay, maybe I need some more guard play. Maybe I need to lean into the front court.
Yeah, I like the televised draft of the All-Star rosters. I think that's a good format for it. I think it's kind of interesting. Like, on Team Clark, like she picked Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell, but she also got Asia Wilson and Satu Sabali, who were two players who were having like some of their best seasons. She also got the two Mystics rookies,
which I love. That was my favorite part of the whole All-Star draft was when she said, "Screw it, I'm going off vibes," and I love both of them. And of course, Caitlin Clark took a victory lap because apparently she told people that her 2019 under 19 FIBA US Team USA teammate in Sonia Citron would be the best pro from this class. And here we are.
Interesting. I missed that.
She said it on the broadcast. She said, I told people all off season that she was going to be the steal of the draft. And here we are.
It's funny because, I've told a couple people this, but like over the past couple years, as I've covered, the ACC, pretty much any time I would cover Notre Dame, I'd be sitting next to, whoever on press row. And Olivia Miles or Hannah Hidalgo always got more of the hype and publicity and all that stuff. But like we would always, at some point during the game, I would have a conversation with somebody about, Sonia Citron's going to be really good in the WNBA. Like, just like a player who does a little bit of everything well, in that game against the Aces, I mean, pretty much every possession was either guarding Jewel Lloyd or Jackie Young. I mean, no easy assignments there for her. Just does a little bit of everything well. But yeah, and then, so you go to Team Collier and it's kind of like a little bit of a UConn reunion there. Like she gets Paige Becker, she gets Brianna Stewart. She also gets her Lynx teammate in Courtney Williams, plus Angel Reese, plus Alyssa Thomas, Neko Gumake, Alicia Gray, who's having an awesome season. Both rosters are really, really good. If you asked me to pick a winner, I was actually looking for a line, and I haven't seen one yet. I think I would ride with Team Clark just because, like, they have, if we're talking about an all-star game, like, we're not really talking about defense here. But like offensively, like I think they have the best guard and the best forward in the game right now when you're talking about Caitlin Clark and Asia Wilson. And then you add in, Satu Sabali and Aaliyah Boston and Sonia Citron and Sabrina Ionescu and all these other players that they have. So I think I would ride with Team Clark if you asked me to make a pick.
Our friends at ESPN Bet actually do have a line.
Oh, they do? Okay.
They do. And they have the spread -2.5 in favor of Team Collier.
Oh, I would take the plus money with Team Clark. Yeah.
I would as well. I'm all about the vibes. Although I did love also the coach trade. I thought that was great content.
Yeah, and appropriate. Like, let Cheryl, coach Nafisa and all that stuff, and let Christine Brennan get mad about Cheryl Reeve not coaching Caitlin Clark and all that stuff.
That sounds like some beef, Mitch, which brings me to this week's What's the Beef? No, we are not talking books and biographies this week in What's the Beef. We actually are going to give a shout out to our friends at The Athletic. They did a poll of various best player, best trash talker, a couple different superlatives, if you may, of the current WNBA players. But we are going to talk about one in particular because this is the What's the Beef segment. And so we will discuss who is the league's biggest trash talker. 33 respondents. Here are the results as follows. The runaway winner for the biggest trash talker in the league is not Caitlin Clark. It is not Angel Reese. It is one Alyssa Thomas of the Phoenix Mercury with 13 of the 33 votes. Courtney Williams Second place with 5, Marina Mabry, maybe not so much of a surprise. In third place with 4 votes, Skylar Diggins with 2 votes. And the following players all received 1 vote each: Dejanay Carrington, Caitlin Clark, Natasha Cloud, Kalia Copper, Sophie Cunningham, Ryan Howard, Kelsey Plum, Angel Reese, and Satu Sabali. What say you, Mitch?
I was a little surprised that Caitlin and Angel only got 1 vote apiece. I was also a little surprised that Marina Mabry only got 4 votes because them Mabrys like to talk. All the Mabrys like to talk. Dara and who's the other one who's escaping?
What's her name?
Michaela.
Yep.
Yeah, who's the coach for Notre Dame now.
Yes.
They all like to talk. They're they like to talk trash.
They've been doing that, by the way, since they were playing in the short conference against my sister and the grades below me, because I'm 1 year older than Dara, I believe, is kind of how that figured into it.
Yeah, I covered Dara, when she was at Virginia Tech and Notre Dame, and she likes to talk as well. But yeah, I've never seen Alyssa Thomas play in person, and probably since her senior year at Maryland. So, I mean, did I see? No, I missed when they came to the Atlanta Dream the year that I covered them. Yeah, so I've never seen Alyssa Thomas play in person, so I haven't gotten that sort of context to I think it's just a little different. Like when you can sit courtside or see them in person, you can pay a little bit closer to attention to some of the trash talk that always isn't picked up by TV. I guess I believe this. She is somebody who plays hard, and I've seen her chirp a little bit. She won this vote by a wide margin, 13 votes. And, some players backed it up, anonymously, saying one of them, she smiles and she talks shit. That's the crazy part. It's psycho stuff. She's crazy. Everyone knows AT talks. I don't even guard her. She talks to me. She always has something. She's always talking. So, yeah, Alyssa Thomas.
Yeah. I knew she talked trash. I didn't know she was this runaway winner. And the argument that's being made is, of course, Diana Taurasi would have won this 1 year ago. And she, certainly, of course, spent her entire career with the Phoenix Mercury. Alyssa Thomas, a newcomer to the desert. But yeah, I just didn't think it would be this much of a runaway. That's very surprising to me.
No, I didn't either. And yeah, there's some other names on here that I just thought they would have maybe gotten some more votes.
Marina is the big one for me, because independent of how you feel about what are we calling it, the scuffle of whatever that was between the Sun and I don't think we've given it a name yet. I feel like we need to give it a name for the history books. The Trace Leches whatever. Sorry, Lexi Hull, I'm involving you. The Trace Leches versus the Dos Lech. I don't know. Point being, I'm shocked we haven't come up with a name for it yet. We probably should workshop that. Maybe someone leaves it in the comments. But yeah, independent of that, that was not the first time Marina Mabry was involved in a scuffle.
No, maybe we can just call that white girl problems.
White girl problems. Boom.
Kalia Copper and Sophie Cunningham. I think both of them maybe deserved another vote or two. We've seen both of them talk. Natasha Cloud is another player who chirps quite a bit. This is great. This is good content.
Kelsey Plum also chirps all the time.
Oh yeah, and she's another player who before Becky Hammond had a lot of things to say about how bad the refs have been this season. So I'm all in favor of trash talk. I love it. I just wanted to mention that if they do this, survey a year from now, I think Olivia Miles is going to be on this list. Olivia Miles likes to talk a lot, especially if she's playing well, and especially if it's in a big environment, the 2 NC State games, the 2 times I've seen her play in Reynolds Coliseum, she's talking the whole time. That Sweet 16, ended up being a loss, but her and Haley Van Lith, going back and forth a couple times. So yeah, I think Olivia Miles has a future on being one of these lists.
Does she like to talk to Hannah Hidalgo though? Have we do we know, was the hatchet buried in Chile? Has that been announced yet, or?
I don't know. I'm looking forward to maybe talking to Hannah Hidalgo at ACC tip-off in October about hey, so are things good now? Or, what happened at that preseason game where like you put your finger in her chest and
we tried to like Zapruder film it on this podcast, and
yeah,
like tons of people wanted to watch us
and
break
a
it down.
an
Yeah.
armed security guard, law enforcement man of some sort, like had to tell y'all to keep it moving. Like, I don't know. Maybe Kara Lawson sat him down and straightened it out.
Yeah, real quick before we take a break, Demiris Dantas of the Indiana Fever, of course, played for Brazil, dropped 35 points in that championship game in Chile against Team USA's under 21 or under 21, under 22. What do we classify them as? U21, right?
Uh,
U22. I forget what we
I don't.
call them.
Yeah, I don't know if there were.
The junior national team, we'll call
Yeah,
them that.
you could say it was. I think they were all. Well, there were some seniors, so I don't know. I don't know what the
Yeah,
age gap would
whatever
have
we're
been.
calling it, the junior national team.
Right.
So Holly Rowe and Rebecca Lobo asked her, they were like, okay, who stood out? And she goes, who's the little one? And then she said, whatever jersey number Hannah Hidalgo had on. She goes, she's really good.
Who was the little one?
And
Yeah.
if you've ever heard Dantas talk, and she obviously is a post player and an imposing figure at that. And again, drops 35 points. Shout out to Dantas, but she was like, who's the little one with the hair? And it could be Olivia Miles, but it was indeed Hannah Hidalgo.
Hannah Hidalgo is going to have to play really, 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 really well this year for Notre Dame to be in any sort of conversation about contending for a title, because that roster it's not great. But if she can be, Wonder Woman and, put the bracelets on and get the shield out and do her thing, who knows?
She wants the smoke. She's going to get it.
She definitely wants to smoke.
Mitch, let's tell our friends not only about the Sports Podcast Festival, which is returning to the Rialto Theater in Raleigh on August 23rd, but drum roll, please. Yours truly will be in attendance officially. I cannot wait to see our friends at Split Zone Duo, Ovius and Gilio, Big Screen Sports. It is going to be an absolute blast. We can't wait to meet so many of you guys. So make sure you get your tickets. Again, buy one, get one half off right now at therialto.com or eTix. Use code SPF25 so that you can get that buy one, get one half off tickets. I got to get my tickets still. Again, that is the Sports Podcast Festival on Saturday, August 23rd at the Rialto Theater. Who are you most excited to see, Mitch? Besides me, of course.
Yeah, I went to a Split Zone Duo live show. I guess this was 2 years ago now, up in Washington, D.C., and had a really fun time there. That was a real, a good blast. I haven't seen those guys since then, so it'll be good to see them. Once upon a time, we all tailgated together before an Army-Navy game when we were all, at SB Nation. So that'll be a lot of fun. But Caroline Darney's a good friend of mine, so Big Screen Sports will be fun to see as well. And then the night before, I believe this is at Bond Brothers Brewing in Cary. They're going to have an event with the folks at Hand in the Dirt and Extra Points with Matt Brown. So kind of a little, appetizer leading up to the Sports Podcast Festival the night before. And I think there's going to be some OG Light there. So if you like beer flavored beer, they'll have that.
I actually haven't told our friend Richard Johnson of Split Zone Duo that I booked my tickets yet. So I hope he finds out in real time listening to this podcast. Yeah. It is the Sports Podcast Festival returning on Saturday, August 23rd. Be there, hang out with me, Mitch, and the whole gang. All right, Mitch, it is time for this week's main event. This one's a little interesting because, again, we're recording this podcast on Monday, July 14th. We are in the midst of the 24-hour mid-season cut-down day window. So, essentially, if you're going to get paid for the rest of the year, you're not going to get waived. It's got to happen by the end of today. I don't know if it was close of business, if it's midnight. We're recording this. It's 7:23 p.m. Eastern time. So someone could get waived, potentially, I think, in the next 5 hours while we have already finished recording this podcast. Point being, it is officially the midway point of the 2025 WNBA season. And so with the trade deadline a couple of weeks away, August 7th, we decided for this week's main event, we are going to discuss what roster moves need to be made here in these important mid-season weeks leading into the stretch run ahead of the 2025 postseason. And so I'm going to let you take this whichever way you want, Mitch. I know that there is one team in particular we want to lead with, but what moves would you either make with a roster that's currently constructed, or what player would you add, or subtract from a roster in order to help that team maximize its full potential?
Well, let's get this one out of the way. As we have been harping on, I mean, we talked about this in the preseason, like before the draft even happened. Is a partnership between Paige Beckers and Arike Ogunbowale going to work? And I think we have a definitive answer. And I think the answer is no. I think we have a big enough sample size now to realize that this is simply not working. So this
Which, by the way, because Kevin asked me at dinner, for those who have not been following, why? Because he said he was like, if you're going to ship Arike out of town and you still believe she's the player who was third in scoring in the league last year, second at the midway point a year ago, then like, why is it not working?
I think there's a couple reasons why. I would say first, Ricky Ogunbowale has never played with a point guard of Paige Beckers' caliber. At Notre Dame, like Arike, in a lot of ways, like was the de facto point guard. I mean, like she had the ball in her hands all the time, and I think she hit some incredible shots in that run to that 2018 national championship. We all remember the 2 buzzer beaters and all that good stuff. The next year she gets drafted. My big question is like, all right, so like we've seen Arike as a professional now for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. 2019.
And she's basically, during that entire time, pretty much been the bus driver for the Dallas Wings. And what did the Dallas Wings have to show for it? Not much. Have they been to the playoffs once?
I don't even know.
Twice, maybe?
Yeah. So the quick counterpoint I would make to that, what did the Indiana Fever have between 2018 and 2024 with Kelsey Mitchell, with her as the bus driver?
That's fair. I think the difference is that Kelsey adjusted better to welcoming in the new blood, so to speak. And that's not to say that Arike hasn't, like, from a mindset perspective, like tried to welcome that in. I just don't think she really like has it in her bag, so to speak, to play like off ball and defer to Paige and kind of be this like catch and shoot player. This happened yesterday. This is from Hunter Cruz at the Next. Arike Ogunbowale is the first WNBA player in a decade to shoot 0 of 10 from the field or worse with a minus 20 plus minus. And just the 5th player in league history to do that. Arike Ogunbowale, I think still, I don't have her stats up right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure everything is at a career worse for her right now. I think it's pretty like easy to explain like how she was able to lead the league in scoring or be one of the top leading scorers in the league the past couple of years is like she had the ball in her hands, all the time on a bad team. And it was kind of just like, all right, well, we'll just let Arike get her like 20 to 30 and then we'll stop everybody else and like it'll be fine, right? Yeah.
I mean, a year ago this time, we were debating whether or not she was the big snub from Team USA, not Caitlin Clark.
Right. Yeah. Career worse in field goal percentage, scoring, points per game, 3-point percentage. She's shooting 29% from 3-point land. I think it's time to just cut bait with her. Like, there's a real possibility that there's this old Bill Simmons thing about, good stats, bad team guy. Yep. Arike Ogunbowale might be that. Or he just might be a better fit on another team. I just think if you're Dallas, you have this core of young players now. When you talk about Paige Beckers and Isaiah James and JJ Quinterly and Lee, the forward they got in the trade, you have this core of players, and like it's very clear that like this is your future, right? And like I just don't think Arike Ogunbowale is going to be a part of their future. Like it doesn't strike me that like that's somebody that they would re-sign in free agency. So I would just get whatever you can for her now, and just lean all the way into your youth movement. You're not making the playoffs this year. That doesn't matter. Just put the ball in the hands of those 4 players and lean all the way into them and really figure out like what you have this year. to add on to that for Dallas, I would also get rid of Tierra McCowan. Like she's a player that's not really giving you anything. She
Oh, and by
doesn't.
the way, Dejanay Carrington is, I know, hurt, but even when she was playing, there was the drama with Coach Chris. I think you could deal her as well, if I'm being completely honest.
Yep. Yeah. I just don't think that McCowan is, I don't know if it's a matter of like her not buying into Chris Koklanes's system or whatever, but like she doesn't really look like a WNBA level player right now. Just like the way that she defends. I mean, anybody can drive on her one-on-one and get a bucket. So her and Enrique, like it's very clear to me that like they don't fit. If Dejanay comes back and like she's willing to buy in and like sort of be the vet for some of these younger players, maybe you can make that work. Maybe you just have a conversation with her and like, hey, are you in? Are you out? Do you want to be moved? She probably felt some type of way about Nalissa Smith getting traded. But like, I just think if you're Dallas and you want to salvage something positive from this season, I think the move is to just you have this young core, lean all the way into them, give them all the minutes, put the ball in their hands. Let's see what you really got there, and move on from the Enrique Gumbawales and Tierra McCowans of the world.
How much do you think Kurt Miller wishes that he listened to us in April when we were like, okay, you drafted Isaiah James. She fell to you in the second round. Just trade Enrique now, because I am fascinated. Now, look, he got a first rounder for Nalissa Smith. So I'm not saying you're not going to get that for Enrique Gumbawale, but in April, you were probably getting multiple.
Yes, I agree. I think that Enrique Gumbawale's trade value has plummeted since April. Like, I think if you would have traded her, a week before the draft, yeah, you probably could have gotten at least one first, maybe two.
You would get multiple picks is the point.
Yeah, yeah.
Or a player and a first round pick.
And now I don't know that someone would give you a first round pick for her because she's going to be a free agent. She's going to be a half season rental. So I don't know. Is there a playoff team that talks themselves into, well, maybe
the Aces?
Well, yeah,
the Aces, guards.
Right? Or a playoff team who's like, hey, we could really use, like a combo guard off the bench when we like give our starting guards a break, and we can bring Enrique in and just put the ball in her hands for 20 minutes a game. And like that'll help us when we have our bench players in. Is there a team that talks themselves into that? I don't know. I don't know if that team really exists right now, but maybe somebody talks themselves into that and like gives Dallas, I don't know, 2 seconds or a late first or something like that. I don't know. I don't really know what her trade value is right now, which is the problem. So I don't know if they can move her.
Speaking of point guards, I'm not suggesting this player will be moved, but this is a storyline that I was reminded that we said last week we would address. We did not last week, so we will this week. Mitch, the floor is once again yours. Hailey Van Lith, you've already made the case that if the Chicago Sky are picking in the lottery once again, they should be trying to get Olivia Miles as their next point guard of the future to pair with Angel Reese, which means that they swung and missed on their first round pick this season.
Yeah. I'll just start by saying I was surprised that Hailey Van Lith was a first round pick, just because I know how well she played at TCU this past season. I know what she did in the NCAA tournament, and all that was great. Not all great college players translate into being great professional WNBA players. I mean, that's true in every sport. Not all great college players translate into being great pros. But the conversations I was having with people, media folks and coaches and whoever at the Sweet 16 Elite 8 weekend in Birmingham, where Hailey Van Lith, they beat Notre Dame before they lost to Texas. We're all like, so what do you think about Hailey Van Lith in the WNBA? Like, where does she get drafted? I mean, a year ago when she was coming off that LSU season, we're like, she has to come back to school because there's no way she's getting drafted. And then she has a great season at TCU. Plus, she has that, the summer where she goes with the 3-on-3 team and they get a medal at the Olympics. But we were all like, yeah, she'll get a shot with somebody, like maybe late second, whatever. Like she'll get a look in training camp. But I think the Sky, by taking a big swing on her like that in the first round, I maybe they kind of backed themselves into a corner, like PR wise, and felt like they couldn't waive her out of training camp. And then Sloot gets hurt, so then you have to play her. It's like the break in case of emergency thing, and she just hasn't been that good. Like I look at like some of her like per game kind of numbers here, and basically between June 7th and so this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, the five out of 6 game stretch. She played north of 20 minutes per game on average, and just didn't really play all that well. And then since then has only topped 10 minutes per game twice. In her last 4 games, she's played 4 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 8 minutes. I think like there was that time period where they tried playing Haley Van Lith, 20 minutes or whatever a game, and then that was when you saw kind of the pivot to the Angel Reese point forward thing. And it's just not really working. Haley Van Lith has scored a total of 2 points in her last 4 games. She's
third worst in scoring on the team, and that's to play like the only 2 players that have averaged less points per game are 2 players who have not played more than double-digit games. Maddie Westbeld played 9 games, and Mariah Jefferson has played 3.
Yeah, she barely has a positive assist turnover ratio. This is the big thing that like I talked about with people, back at the NCAA tournament and really throughout her career as I covered the ACC when she was at Louisville, and then as she was at LSU and then TCU. It was always, okay, well, if Haley Van Lith is going to be a WNBA player at her size, she has to become a better 3-point shooter. And she's shooting 19% from 3-point land this season. That's not going to cut it. So I really don't know what her future is in the WNBA. I think it's a good thing for her that coming up, we're about to get 2 expansion teams entering the league next season. So now you're talking about what's that, 24 more roster spots, 12 apiece, for the Toronto Tempo and the unnamed Portland franchise. So I think that she'll probably get another look next season. I would expect that Chicago leaves her unprotected in the expansion draft.
But do you think one of those 2 teams takes her?
Maybe one of them talks themselves into it. I think there's a chance that maybe Haley Van Lith plays in like Unrivaled or or Athletes Unlimited. Probably Unrivaled, considering just like
3-on-3.
her success and history in 3-on-3. Like if she can get herself a spot in that league and like do really well, maybe there's a team that talks themselves into giving her another shot. I don't know. I don't know what her future looks like in the WNBA or if it can be a successful one.
Well, what adds salt to the wound and to combine these 2 potential roster moves together, Isaiah James, double-digit scoring, 6 of her last 7 games. JJ Quinterly, double figures the last 5 times out. And both those players were taken after Haley Van Lith. And I understand that Isaiah James plays a different position. JJ Quinterly plays the same position. You can also go back to, is Haley
But Isaiah, I would argue, I mean, like, if they were just looking for kind of a sort of a combo guard, like Isaiah had the ball in her hands a lot at NC State. Like, she could run the point. I mean, on both accounts, like, you're absolutely right. Like, they should have taken one of those 2 players.
Well, they also should have not traded their 3rd-round pick for Ariel Atkins, and then they would have Sonia Citron right now. Maybe we'd be having a different conversation. Any other moves? I know we stuck a pin in Chelsea Gray. How do we fix the Las Vegas Aces before the trade deadline, Mitch? Are there any other teams that you say, who can we tinker with?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea Gray is certainly, like, I just don't think she's a fit for the Aces right now. I don't know. I'm certain that there's a trade market out there for her, a team that needs a point guard. Like, Chelsea Gray is still a really good point guard.
Chicago Sky need a point guard.
Sure. Chicago just doesn't really have a lot to trade for her. The Aces want to get good value. I don't know. The Chelsea Gray, just the whole, I just think the Aces made a big mistake by trading Kelsey Plum for Jewel Lloyd. It just hasn't really worked out really for either party yet. Like, Seattle's fine. they've seemed to have
I've got
moved
some
on
thoughts on
okay.
them, but continue. Yeah.
But like Kelsey is having, I think, some trouble, in Los Angeles, and maybe that gets better when you get Cameron Brink coming back, and maybe Cameron Brink takes some attention off of her and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, for the Aces, like the roster moves that they made this past offseason, that none of them have worked. Like none of those players that they've brought in, none of them are like, oh wow, like this is a player that's a starter and they're really helping us. Like Jewel Lloyd is not having like a great season by Jewel Lloyd standards, in terms of like what she did in Seattle. I think Aaliyah Nye is a solid player. Maybe there's a way you can give her some more opportunities. I just think that maybe the Aces need to take a long look in the mirror this offseason and figure out, okay, how can we rebuild this roster around Asia Wilson and Jackie Young? Like those are your two cornerstones. Figure out how to maximize their talents.
I just think the roster is it's top heavy.
Yeah.
You've got these known commodities and then that middle part of the Oreo, if you may, that we didn't talk nearly enough about last year between the Kate Martins, the Sid Colsons, the Tiffany Mitchells of the world. The Alicia Gray, or not the Alicia Gray, the Alicia Clark. I'm going to get to her here in a second. Like we don't talk about that middle part of that roster the last 3 years, which was the reason it was a championship roster, not just because you had the best player in the world and you also had one of the best point guards and two great guards on either side of her.
Yep. There was a lot of pieces on those championship Aces teams that I think were underrated and maybe overlooked, and they're not there anymore. And now they're really starting to feel it.
And so one of those pieces for me, if I can give a fourth builder roster situation, I really like what Tiffany Mitchell has brought to Seattle. I've only watched, the 2 games that she's been in Seattle for up to this point. Again, we're recording this on Monday the 14th. I am fascinated to see what her coming into the lineup, averaging over 21 minutes per game in those first 2 games with the Storm. I'm fascinated to see what that means long-term for the rest of that bench. They're obviously not giving up on, and I know it's a different position, but they're not going to give up on Dominique Malonga, the number 2 overall pick. The plan to ease her in, I have found fascinating. I'm here for it. She's the youngest player in the W. She's 19 years old. I get it. I would have thought they would have taken the training wheels off a little bit more by now, but that's okay. That's cool. And then in terms of minutes played, the 2 players who've kind of been perhaps most affected by this move to add Tiffany Mitchell, Alicia Clark, Zaya Cook. And so in turn, do you have some of those players perhaps who are in that middle part of that roster, knowing, as we have documented time and time again on this podcast, the Seattle Storm are this roster where, like, again, I compare it to the New York Yankees having, Cody Bellinger and Goldschmidt. Like, if you had told me in 2017 that that's who the Yankees had, like, you're like, oh my God, they must be the best team in baseball. And that's how I feel about the Seattle Storm and the names that you see up and down this roster. And so I'm curious, with so many of those parts, could you perhaps try to trade some away to a team that needs more depth coming off the bench in order to procure some more draft picks as they continue to be competitive while building around Malonga?
Yeah, I think Alicia Clark is certainly like a good case for somebody that maybe they could kind of, sell high on a little bit. But she's somebody who, was playing a lot of minutes for them. And then, these past couple of weeks really hasn't all that much. So yeah, maybe she's somebody who, could be a fix for one of these teams. And I don't know, is Seattle going to talk themselves into Arike Ogunbowale or Chelsea Gray? I don't think so.
Hey, listen, if they're trying to build the best team from 2019, why not? Like, hey, throw another star who may still be in her prime, maybe on the tail end of it. I don't know. Like, throw her out there. Let's just see what happens. Nothing like experience. That's the motto up there in the Pacific Northwest. That is this week's main event. It is time to make money with Mitch. For those of you who may have missed it, the combination of Mitch Northam and myself, 7-5. Then in the second week of Mitch's extended vacation / coverage of the NBA draft, I went 0 for 3. Round of applause, though. Mitch goes 2-1 last week. Darn you, Minnesota Lynx, losing to the Chicago Sky. We are back. We are 9-9. Who is on the slate this week, sir?
So I'm going to start with, when you hear this podcast, it will come out on Wednesday. Wednesday night, the Liberty will host the Indiana Fever. This is 7:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. I like the Liberty to win and cover 5.5. I think the Liberty are playing pretty well right now. They also lost at the Fever the last time these two teams played, so maybe a little bit of a motivation there. The Fever, as we've mentioned, have been a little bit up and down. So if you have a game, where we get kind of the bad Fever, maybe the Liberty run away with this. I think even if the good Fever show up, though, this is a game that the Liberty should be able to win at home.
And don't forget, too, that the Fever will be coming off of a game in, I believe it's TD Garden when they're playing the Connecticut Sun. So back-to-back for the
Indeed.
Indiana Fever on the road.
Yep. Yeah, coming off a back-to-back. So we're going to move past All-Star Weekend, and I'm just going to jump to next Tuesday. And we have, coming back from the All-Star break, the Mystics hosting the Sparks at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN3. I'm going to take the Mystics at -5.5. The Sparks just, haven't been all that good this year. I think the Mystics are just the better, more cohesive team, having a lot of fun playing. They get this one at home. I think that you'll probably see Sonia Citron guarding Kelsey Plum quite a lot. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Mystics -5.5 over the Sparks.
Are we the official Mystics podcast? I feel like we have to be.
We could be.
We are the Mystic stands. And to your point of if they get AZ Fudd in the draft, I think I may lose Kevin on the Indiana Fever train. Like, I truly think he may just be all in on the Mystics because he just wants to root for a fellow DMV product.
Yeah, I know that Tyler Byram does a lot of Mystics coverage for the Monumental Sports Network. They might have a podcast. I'm not 100% sure, but shout out to him. I met him at George Mason. And shout out
We're
to
Mystic
the
stands, though. We are here. We and Caitlin Clark are all in on the vibes that are coming out of DC right now.
Yeah, shout out to my friends Jen Hatfield and Kareem Copeland, who also do a good job of covering the Mystics. Moving on, this is also next Tuesday night as well. This is 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. This is Atlanta at Las Vegas. I changed my pick just before we started recording because of the Ryan Howard injury news. So this line currently right now as we record is Las Vegas by 2.5. So I'm going to take the Aces at -2.5, despite all the problems that we have talked about the Aces having. I think just, maybe the All-Star break will be a good reset for them. Maybe it'll give Becky Hammond some time to figure some things out. Maybe Asia Wilson has well rested. Maybe Chelsea Gray and Jewel Lloyd are in a better groove. We'll see. But I think Atlanta without Ryan Howard, they're going to be a little shorthanded. They got to do the cross-country trip. So I'll take the Aces -2.5.
No one has taken more threes on the W this season than Ryan Howard, also as first predicted on this podcast by
Indeed.
Mitchell Northam. In case you missed it, again, to recap, these are Mitch's picks this week. On Wednesday, the New York Liberty 5.5-point favorites over the Indiana Fever at home. Right? That's at Barclays, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's at the Barclays Center.
In New York,
next Tuesday, game 2 of this week's 3-pack, the Washington Mystics, a 5.5-point favorite over the Los Angeles Sparks. And also next Tuesday, after the WNBA All-Star break, the Atlanta Dream versus the Las Vegas Aces. We are fighting with you, Becky Hammond. Not fighting in that way. We are rolling with the fighting Becky Hammonds. She may be fighting a puppy at that point, but that's okay. Or maybe the refs. Mitch is going to roll with his friend Becky, 2.5-point favorites, which 100% Mitch means that the Aces will win by 3 points, and it will be another one-possession nail-biter because that's just the way the Aces have been this season.
Yeah, it'll be like Asia Wilson and one to win the game.
Or free throws, something like that. It is time for last call. The news, the notes, the storylines that we missed. Shout out to someone who we've already paid homage to on this podcast already, but we're going to do it again. That is our friend Howard Megdal at The Next. Again, we really dove in last week into Becoming Caitlin Clark, his outstanding book, which I finished in 3 days. Shout out to his entire publishing team, Clarissa and that whole crew. They're awesome. We appreciate you guys. Clarissa, you were 100% right. I was near tears reading some of these little bits and pieces about the history of the Van Horn Hornets, which of course I'm very familiar with Van Horn. One of my best friends is from Benton County. Shout out Hannah Brecht. And then, coupled with the Molly Bolin storyline and my friend Donna Orender getting so many shout outs. I was just like near tears on the beach reading this book, and it was outstanding. The reason I want to plug it, not only is that it's great, but Howard announced today on Monday the 14th that he, Lisa Bluter, and Jan Jensen are going to be doing a exclusive signing and discussion about the book in Iowa City. And so make sure you go check that out, because I wish I could be there because it sounds awesome.
Yeah, me too. I actually I got to hear Howard talk about the book with Jackie Powell when I was in New York City a couple weeks ago at a book event there. So that was cool to go to, just to hear him talk about the book. So yeah, if you can get to Iowa City, certainly him and Lisa and Jan Jensen, that is going to be an awesome event.
Yeah, very, very jealous. Couple more to get through. The Jordan Canada career high game. It was very interesting for me watching that game in real time when she dropped a career high 26 points in the first half and then had one field goal in the second half. Sorry, Jordan. It was very interesting for me, Mitch, watching that in real time while reading Howard's book and Lisa Bluter and Jan Jensen explaining the scouting report in the 2023 national title game. LSU was not the 3-point shooting team all season that they were in the national title game. And Kevin is like screaming at the TV as Jordan Canada just keeps like dropping threes. He's like, Sophie, step up. Like, but to that point, when she's only made 9 threes all year coming in, like it's, do you just tip your cap and say there's no way she's going to replicate it in the second half? Shout out to Jordan Canada for the new career high. But yeah, that one was, that was a frustrating one. But then reading the book simultaneously, I'm just like, well, if this is what the scouting report says, like there's not really much you can do.
Yeah, that LSU national title game, Jasmine Carson was the player that went off, and basically like before, I think it ended up being her career high. And it was just, I just remember like, I had covered a lot of ACC stuff, and she had been a player that was like at Georgia Tech, and then she was at West Virginia for a little bit, and then ends up at LSU, and has like an okay season, but really doesn't like pop off for anything crazy. And during the NCAA tournament, she scored 0 points in the previous 3 games: 0 against Virginia Tech, 0 against Miami, and 0 against Utah. And then pops off for 22 points during that game, 7 of 8 from the floor. I think had most of her points in the first half, if I remember that right. Just like a
Jordan
wild.
Canada.
Yeah, we all remember that game for, the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark stuff, but Jasmine Carson is the one that like saved the day for LSU and helped them she was like their equalizer in the first half.
And no one saw it coming, at least from the scouting report.
No,
let's run through a couple of others quickly, since I know our time is low. Shout out to Aaliyah Boston, who is officially now, not only did she have a day named in her honor, it's Aaliyah Boston Day in the city of Boston, which is very, very cool. She also is officially an investor in Boston Legacy FC of the NWSL. We love women's sports. I'm Aaliyah. I'm a leader. I'm Aaliyah. We love you. So great to see Aaliyah getting involved in that world, as well as her Zillow deal, which is my favorite endorsement in the WNBA, for just basically the social videos of her and her parents looking at houses. If you haven't watched them, go watch them. They're hilarious. I would also like to shout out Tyrese Halliburton, who gave away courtside seats. Some of our friends at Home Field Apparel actually got the tickets from Tyrese. So shout out Tyrese for also being a staunch supporter of women's sports.
Yeah. I had forgotten before this NWSL news that Aaliyah Boston actually spent part of her time growing up in the New England area. Totally forgot that. I just have always associated her with being from the Virgin Islands. And
right. And then you hear her last name's Boston and you're like, wait, are they just like trying to play on words here? No, she actually went to high school in the Massachusetts
Worcester.
Area, so. Yeah. It is time, Mitch. First, I do want to note a great tweet that you had with the Sun Belt inviting Louisiana Tech to the league.
Yes.
Share this one with the folks at home before we get into Wicked, as promised, and some other final news and notes.
I was just like thinking about this. So I don't know if they still do this at the Final Four and national championship game, but they did the first one I ever went to in 2019. They hang up in the rafters, like just for the Final Four and the national title game. Basically, like, if you've won a national title, they have a banner for you. and it has the years that you've won the national title on it. So, like this was when I was first like starting out covering women's college basketball, really, and I'm looking up and I'm like, Old Dominion won a national title, and then yeah, they did in the 1980s, and they were awesome, and Louisiana Tech won too.
Kim Mulkey.
Right. I think one as a player, then one with her as an assistant coach to Mr. Barmore. So Louisiana Tech is going to the Sun Belt now, which means that the Sun Belt has two teams in it that have won national championships in women's college basketball since we've been in the NCAA Division I era. We're not counting the AIAW stuff or anything before that. So the SEC has 5, the Big Ten has 3, the ACC has 3, and then the Sun Belt has 2 with Louisiana Tech and Old Dominion. The Big 12 has 2, and the Big East has just 1. So,
which I mean, UConn, technically won a bunch of titles as part of the American Athletic too. So, like,
oh yeah, that's true.
Now they're members of the Big East.
I'm counting where you're at right now because the ACC, like, 2 of their people, Notre Dame and Stanford, they won championships in other conferences. But it's just kind of a funny stat, sort of like in the same line of, I think I saw the Big Ten share like a graphic of players in the WNBA AllStar game.
You were so mad about this.
And like Alyssa Thomas is on there. It's like Alyssa Thomas was a 3-time ACC Player of the Year. Like
Sabrina Ionescu played in the Big Ten. Everyone knows. Come on.
Yeah, Sabrina didn't play in the Big Ten. Kiki.
So did Kelsey Plum is the second all-time leading scorer in the Big Ten behind Caitlin Clark.
That's the other one, Kelsey Plum, because Kiki Iriafen did play in the Big Ten this past season with USC. I just it's kind of in the same vein as that. So that was my way of doing the Big Ten graphic.
Yeah, Big Ten stat of the day. Okay, it's time before we say goodbye. Wicked, I loved it. They did Defying Gravity at the game that we were at. What song was sung at halftime of the Mystics and the Aces?
I'm the wrong person to ask. It was very good though.
I'm assuming it was Defying Gravity.
Sure. There was a solo and then there was a duet.
Oh, there were multiple.
Yeah, we got 2 songs.
Okay. That's very exciting because I thought the only reason we got it was because Wicked was coming to Indianapolis. Because I saw when we were walking around town, I saw the trailer. So I was like, oh, she's just in town and now she's going to do this. But then when I saw they performed at the Mystics game too, I was like, maybe there's like a synergy going on here that I didn't realize.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. If the W is just like doing Wicked nights or how that's working. But I have not seen Wicked, so I don't know the songs, but it was very good and it was entertaining. And, it was better than Apologies, but seeing Red Panda for the 30th time. So hope she's doing well, by the way. Godspeed to Red Panda.
The number of listeners of this podcast who reached out to me last week, and it was not about any of our actual content. It was about, my God, why are you guys trashing Red Panda? That's Mitch and Dimitri, folks, which Dimitri is not here tonight, so we're recording on our own. But that's their battle. I would never say anything bad about you, Red Panda, because I know that Sid Colson doesn't think that you're in her mentions. I know you're in mine. Before we get out of here, Mitch, you have an exciting story coming out. Tell us more.
Oh yeah. So I went to Baltimore after I went to the game in Fairfax, and I went to this event that Mark Andrews, Baltimore Ravens Pro Bowl tight end, had with Dexcom, which is like the reader that people have on their arm if they have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And they were basically signing athletes there to NIL deals, and they were doing stuff with kids and all that. So one of the athletes that they signed to an NIL deal is Shalimai Sanders, who is the daughter of Deion Sanders, and she plays basketball at Alabama A&M. So I got to chat with her for a few minutes. And by the time this podcast goes up, that story and interview will be up on SB Nation. So you can check that out.
Love it. By the time this podcast goes live, I am assuming, and if it hasn't, well, stay tuned, folks. The question that I know many of you Jaguars fans who otherwise would not be listening to the Women's Basketball Podcast will have been looking for will have been revealed. Number one, I hope now you like and subscribe to the podcast and you keep coming back because Mitch and I aren't going anywhere.
Absolutely.
But yes, the next big career move will have already been announced by the time this podcast drops, or it will be in the next few hours. He is Mitch. I am Mia saying we will catch you next week.
Deuces.